talk a little sports. Good morning and welcome back.
Thank you.
So the other big story yesterday, and this one, of course, it popped up after we got a chance to talk yesterday, but I wanted to kind of get your take on this. Monday Night Football, of course, the Chiefs, and you're a Chiefs fan, so you might know more about this guy than I do. But the Chiefs safety that I guess made an interception, returned it for a touchdown, was flagged for an excessive celebration for praying in the end zone. I guess he slid to a kneeling position and did the Muslim prayer where you have to kneel and touch your head to the ground and all that kind of stuff. Now the NFL immediately, first thing yesterday morning, as soon as their offices opened at 10 o'clock Eastern time, they made it a huge apology. I don't know if it was enough to get the special interest groups off their back. They said, praying is not a penalty. The referee just gave him a penalty because he thought it was a slide and an excessive celebration. I don't have a problem with the guy doing his prayer. I think the penalty wasn't right, and the NFL was obviously mistaken. I assume the referee didn't know what he was doing when he threw the flag. That's what I assume. It's probably just the referee didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know he was praying. He thought he was doing some kind of celebration dance.
Yeah, and I think it's nice. I think it's great when people score and they actually. A lot of times, what they say is they give glory to a higher being.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Do it. Yeah. Now, I wasn't really clear on the NFL rules about that. I thought when it happened, I kind of just thought that you couldn't pray at all.
Well, Tim
Tebow used to do it all the time. He didn't get flagged, but I thought they changed it. But I could be wrong on that.
Well, and the NFL, the problem that I have with this is it's not the praying, and I think the NFL was right to admit that they were wrong. The problem I have with it is how quickly they admitted they were wrong. They didn't even have to be pestered for it. They were just like that, immediately apologizing. Now they got a little bit of backlash online, but not a lot. And I know some groups, some Muslim groups got a hold of them and said, "Hey, look, we'll give you sensitivity training." I don't think that's necessary. Just say, the referees all know now that this is what the prayer looks like. Leave guys alone. And the player, maybe he shouldn't have slid into position. I'm pretty sure that's not the proper way to do it. I know it's a very specific thing they have to do. So maybe you shouldn't have slid into the position either.
You know what? I'm not sure I'm buying that. I don't think the sliding the position thing is why he threw the flag. I think the referee literally thought that was excessive celebration. I think that's what he really thought.
Yeah,
which is just his mistake. No big deal.
Yeah.
And the NFL has to come out and do that. Because let's just be honest here. We're talking about Muslim groups. They're way more extreme in their backlash than, say, a Christian group would be. If it was a Christian group, the NFL wouldn't have this quick reaction to it. Think about comedy shows like South Park or Family Guy. South Park, actually, they have some guts. They will make fun of Muslims. They make fun of everybody. Catholics, Muslims, Jews, atheists, everybody under the sun. But a lot of these shows, say Comedy Central says, hey, you can't put that on there because it offends Muslims, just because of the simple fact that they're a little more extreme in their behavior as far as backlash is concerned. And if you offend a Catholic, no big deal.
And I think that's part of the reason why the NFL apologized so quickly. They, like every other large corporation, are deathly afraid of offending the Muslim community. And this wasn't a big slide. It was a 15-yard flag in a blowout game. It's not like they were taking away anybody's rights, and they admitted they were wrong. I don't see why people were so upset. It didn't make a difference in the game. The First Amendment rights don't apply to football. Nobody has a right to pray in a football game. I like when people do it too. Even this guy. I mean, if that's his religion. I mean, he's from all I could tell, the guy doesn't cause any trouble.
Mm-hmm.
He's not he's not a bad player. I mean, I'd rather see that than some of the other celebrations that people do. I mean, the ones that are just they slow the game down. This didn't slow the game down at all.
And his response after the game was classy for the flag.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't come out and say anything against the officials where he easily could have. I mean, if that was me and say, I mean, I'm not athletic at all, but say I was in the NFL. Let's stream a little bit here. Say I was in the NFL, scored a touchdown, and every time I scored, I dropped and kneeled and prayed, and I got flagged for it. I'd be very upset. I wouldn't be near as classy as he was after the game. I'd be very mad.
And here's the thing. I mean, normally in the NFL, if you criticize the officials, you would get a fine. He wouldn't get a fine for criticizing them over that.
Right.
Because they were wrong. And if you point out that they're wrong, and they are wrong, they'll usually let you slide on it as long as you don't do it in a way that would be detrimental to the league. If you But he didn't do anything wrong. The referee just threw a flag. It was a mistake. The NFL admits the mistake. But I think you're right that they're being a little bit oversensitive. And you mentioned South Park. South Park is the perfect example of a large company. Of course, Comedy Central, I believe, is owned by. I think they're owned by. I think they're owned by NBC Universal. I'm not 100% sure. So Comcast.
I think you're right. I think you're right on that one.
Let me just double check. But they're obviously one of the large, owned by one of the large media conglomerates. And they had an episode, and it was inspired. Oh, it's owned by Viacom, so it's owned by CBS. They had an episode that was based on the Muhammad cartoon, and this is what you were referring to. They made fun of the backlash to the Muhammad cartoon, and the plan was to have Muhammad in the episode. And of course, the joke was that Muhammad was a big, huge stuffed teddy bear. If I remember right, I could be mistaken, but that was supposed to be the joke, that Muhammad was just this big, huge stuffed teddy bear. And there was, the backlash, the death threats, all that kind of stuff. Viacom and Comedy Central said you can't do that. So when they aired the episode, they cut to a black frame and said Comedy Central won't let us show Muhammad. I think the online version of it, I think the version that they posted on the South Park website actually has the full uncut version, and it's a cable channel. They can do anything they want. There's no FCC regulations. But even South Park has been sort of censored, and I hate to use the word censorship because it's not the government doing this, but it is kind of like a mob rule.
Exactly.
You have so much internet connectivity these days that people that aren't even related and don't watch the show normally, they'll complain, and it's sort of a heckler's veto, so to speak.
Exactly. And one thing I have to say about the creators, they never back down. A lot of the other shows, like say Family Guy,
oh yeah,
they do it on purpose. They're not going to put anything that offends Muslims. They'll offend Jews, Christians, all they want, but they won't offend Muslims. South Park creators were very upset about this. They wanted to use it because they don't care about death threats. It kind of fuels them, the way they are. But Comedy Central wouldn't let them.
Now,
something. Watching South Park, sometimes I get offended, but I'm laughing.
Well,
so
that's why it's one of, and they don't get enough credit. I mean, it is one of the great shows of all time, just because. They are not afraid of anything. I mean, they're not afraid of anything. And the other ironic thing about the whole South Park story, and to kind of close it up, they had shown Muhammad in another episode before. This was several years before the whole Muhammad cartoon in Denmark scandal, and nobody said a word. There was no backlash because nobody knew that they were supposed to be offended.
Exactly.
And that's the sad part about a lot of this outrage that you see these days. People are only offended when somebody tells them they're supposed to be offended. You can even go back to the Redskins thing. Nobody was offended by the Redskins name until a couple years ago. I mean, nobody is now, but the media types that are now offended, somebody had to tell them to be offended. Harry Reid wasn't offended by the Redskins name until it became politically expedient for him to be offended by the Redskins name. So all of this is just completely disingenuous and manufactured outrage.
I agree completely. You said it best right there. You're right. I mentioned before Bob Costas. The Redskins have been around a long time. He didn't mention this 15 years ago. You're right. The people have been told, they've been brainwashed. Hey, you need to be offended by this, and it really starts in the school system. I remember at my university, it was always about how about all these names with Native Americans we ought to change.
Well, you went to school, and you went to school in Oklahoma,
in Stillwater, Oklahoma,
which is. I mean that is. I mean, let's be honest. That's where that's ground zero for the Native American community.
Yeah,
I mean Oklahoma was originally an Indian state. I mean, there's a lot of Native Americans in Oklahoma. Most people in Oklahoma don't mind any of the Redskins, the Chiefs, the Cleveland Indians, the Braves. You go to Oklahoma and you ask 100, you could probably go right on, one of the reservations and ask 100 people, and I bet you'd maybe find 3 or 4 that would be offended by any of those names.
The outrage of the Redskins name or any high school that had the Indians, Braves, whatever, did not come from the reservations in Oklahoma, did not come from the Native American people. It was from white professors in Norman, Oklahoma, and Stillwater, Oklahoma, and people in Oklahoma City. That's where the outrage came.
Guilty white professors that probably moved there from Boston or New York or Philadelphia that have nothing to do with the culture in that area.
Exactly.
So what do we have going on in sports?
Well, we have the Wyoming Cowboys Sports Report. They have a week off this week, and they're going to use it to get better.
Okay, sounds good. We'll see you in an hour. News Talk 1270, KIML.
Election season is here. All the best candidate interviews on the Don Carpenter Show on News Talk 1270 KIML.